Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us here at Future Female Forward. I had the privilege of being invited to the ambassador's residence where they had put together a wonderful group of women to really exchange ideas and stories, and I thought it would be wonderful to actually bring you on to Future Female Forward to hear exactly that from you. You know, the Netherlands figures, Ambassador, as far as gender parity is concerned, at least in the EU, quite highly. I mean, in the 2024 rankings, you're behind Sweden and Denmark. And I want to understand from you, from your own experience of being a diplomat, of working your way through various roles that you've played, what holds women back, and what do you believe women need to do, but more importantly, what do you believe organizations need to do to dismantle the structures that hold women back?
Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's true, you joined us when we were talking about women on board, and we invited 6 very influential and powerful women like yourself to talk with us and the audience on what the situation is actually in India. And that was such a energizing and interesting meeting that we became friends, I think,
yes,
straight away.
We have.
And so let's talk a bit about these kind of issues, because it's something of a global point of attention, let me put it that way, where I think we made huge strides during decades, and I'm a little concerned nowadays on are we going to actually get there to this parity that we're all striving for, or are there pushbacks at this moment in time? But let's maybe talk about that a little bit later to see that trend as well. For us, for the Netherlands, yes, I think we're high in the ranking. I think the Scandinavian countries are still beating us, but it's something that's very important for us. I think Scandinavian countries here and there led the way, like Norway, for example. Already in 2003, they had a quota for board members of companies who were listed for the stock exchange. And at that moment in time, I remember that there was a little bit of this hesitation, like, well, do we need that? I mean, it should be merit-based. And I was absolutely convinced that it is merit-based, that it's very important and good to have this quota, because you have to break this ceiling first and then prove, like many said, you said it yourself, and I think also the CEO of the bank said it, it's not only fair, but it's also selfish, because it's also better to have women on board.
Right.
So they absolutely convinced me that for a certain moment you need this quota in order to break the ceiling. And that's also what's happening now in the Netherlands. On the supervisory board, we also have a mandatory quota right now, and that's helping a lot. I think we're at 33% right now for the supervisory boards, but still at 17% for the executive boards. So it does help, and they're doing really well. I think you mentioned some figures there on the outcome, actually, of these kind of shared boards that we have nowadays.
No, I agree with you, and I think I was in the same camp as you, debating whether we actually needed quotas or not. But the data actually tells us the story. Till we had the market regulator SEBI bring in mandatory quotas, we didn't actually see the needle change. And so I think, at some points in time, you do need more than just a gentle nudge to get people to do what is the right thing. And we're now seeing that materially change. But, Ambassador, in your experience of being part of different roles, in your capacity at NATO to here now as the ambassador of Netherlands to India, what have been some of the biggest lessons that you've learned in terms of well-intentioned policies that don't necessarily always work and in fact have the adverse consequences, and the policies that may seem simplistic but are actually most effective? What are some things that you've seen that have been very, very effective in the workplace, as well as things that you've championed and shepherded in your various roles?
Well, I think if I speak for diplomacy, if I speak for my own company, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it's absolutely helped that women were teaming up, and that they were actually demanding, and that they were actually exposing, when you could see each and every time that women were not posted equally as men. And when they were posted to ambassadorships, it was not always at the most at the most important countries, if I can put it that way. So I think women really demanded that, and they also demanded some explanation, why not, and what was behind. And I also saw when I was, climbing up in the ranks, and I was at the table where these decisions were being made, where very often it was only me and one other woman in a committee of 9, I could see how the reasoning was actually excluding women very often for certain positions. Like, well, this country, maybe it's too dangerous for a woman to post her there. Or for this woman, well, her man just made a career step, so maybe she cannot leave now, or she has small children. And we, the two women, would always say, well, ask her about it. Offer her the job. She can make, she can do the reasoning.
She can make the decision.
She can make the decision herself. And even the man didn't mean, it was not, it was out of good heart, maybe even that I'm not even sure, but tell them, offer them the job, and they can make their decision. So it was interesting to see that, and I think at a certain moment you need a little bit of clout. If you're one woman in the boardroom, if you're one woman at the meeting table, it's hard. But if it's 1/3, it already helps a lot. And even better, I think, 50-50.
Well, that clearly is power in numbers. But, to the point that you made, that the decision-making, the exclusion starts at the decision-making, at the start of the decision-making process itself, where you're deciding for the woman, she has children, or will she be able to travel, or so on and so forth. But I want to also flip this to a conversation that I recently had with a woman leader who said that very often women tend not to raise their hands as well. One, because, there's the perfection penalty. You think you're not good enough for the job. And two, the judgment and scrutiny often hold women back from asking what they rightfully believe is owed to them or is deserved to them. Have there been instances where you've raised your hand and said, well, no, I can do the job, and it should come my way?
Well, yeah, I do remember as well the moments, because very often when you start your career, you're chosen by men to be their deputy. And that's how you go through the ranks, and that works very well. I very much remember the moment when I was actually offered a job and accepted it, where I was actually more in the place of a man, and where I could feel the pushback. This was being the Deputy Director General for Political Affairs. That was very much seen as that's the part of the security part of the House. And I was the first female Deputy DG in that position, and very much so at NATO. We were only with 5 women at the decision-making table, the North Atlantic Council.
And only 5 women?
5 women, 25 men. And that is, where really, this is really about life and death. These are decisions that are very important for all of us that are taken at that table. But I could feel then for the first time that I was in a chair where lots of men in my ministry thought it was actually theirs. And there I think you need a strong, straight, posture. Remain always kind, but always be firm as well. And I think at that table, I think it was most interesting of all for me to see how diversity can work. And not only diversity of men and women being at one table discussing these kind of interesting and very important issues for us, but also diversity in background. Because I could see that many people at the table were for their whole life they have been working in security issues. And so the lens through which they looked at certain subjects was very kind of narrow. And I could see that I'd lived in Brazil, where I worked as a young diplomat. I served at South Africa as an ambassador, and just haven't seen the world and the West and NATO from different perspectives was already a kind of diversity that was also needed at the table, I think, where you could bring in other perspectives. So I think diversity is not only men and women, but it's also different backgrounds, different upbringing, sometimes different ethnic background, especially in Europe, where we have so many people who come from other places and who are now part of our society, who I share my nationality with as well. To have them also at the table, at the decision-making table, I think it's not only fair, but let me quote the CEO, also we're selfish, it also makes the decisions better, I think, and our society more integrated, more inclusive.
Speaking of better decisions, do you think if we had, instead of 5 women at the NATO table along with 25 men, if we had a more balanced equation, the world would be in a better place today?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not, because I don't think if the outcome would be so 100% different, because I can also see nowadays sometimes when women are at very high positions, or are the prime minister or are the president, that not always they make such different decisions, because I think to get to that position you need a certain kind of compromising nature as well to actually reach that position. But still, I do think and I do believe to have that diversity, it does make a difference. It does make a difference. I absolutely believe so.
I do think that it does make a difference as well. But, I want to talk about something that you alluded to, that we're seeing a pushback. And we're certainly seeing a pushback in the US, for instance, at this point in time. And the worry or the concern is that we're, in fact, going to retreat. We're going to move further away from the global goals of achieving gender parity. I mean, if you go by the World Economic Forum, anyway, it's 100+ years before we get anywhere close to gender parity. And the worry is that we're going to step back even further. What concerns you about that today?
Well, I'm terribly concerned about it. On the whole global trend, what we see, the global trend of populism that we see, of very, easy answers on that people and electorate doesn't know anymore what's true, what's a lie. This is all blurring the whole international discussion. And then on our subject of tonight, where we see that diversity is suddenly a swear word, or inclusion is suddenly something that you seem to be ashamed of, and where laws are being adopted that it should be taken out of policies of companies, and it terribly worries me, because I think this is what we do need. We need inclusive societies also for peace and stability of our societies. So it does worry me, but also, I don't know if he is as notorious, I should maybe say this, Mr. Tate, is Mr. Andrew Tate, with his millions and millions of followers. And it terribly worries me that there are so many young boys who are following this, who are, it's so toxic what we see on social media, that I think there's really a pushback, and that we need to stick together. I'm very happy that we have an audience here of men and women, that we have a CEO who's visionary and who's actually promoting and supporting these kind of evenings, because I think it's in our joint interest to make sure that we have a peaceful and inclusive and stable society.
So how do we reclaim space, Ambassador, and how do we reclaim space at the table? How do we reclaim voice at the table to ensure that there isn't a retreat, that there isn't a pushback? Is there anything that you believe, of course, the need to act together is important, but anything else that you believe specifically at this point in time, that both at a government level, at a policy level, as well at a corporation level, that we need to do and prioritize?
Yes, well, I think we should look for people who feel the same way, men and women. I think it works much better if you work together with men and women, and that we actually will not shy back for this kind of push of finding, almost using words of inclusion, of diversity, and not shy away. Just be firm and tell our truth as well. And look for discussion, look for debate, and try to understand also where the other reasoning is coming from. What's their fear, where does it come from, this trend? I think I always believe in debates. Maybe that's why I became a diplomat.
Yes,
that's the only way forward.
It is I hope it's the way forward. But, your experience here in India and what you've learned, what you take away from the India experience that you could perhaps incorporate in the way that you operate in the Netherlands, and similarly, experiences from the Netherlands that you believe India can perhaps learn from.
Yeah. Well, I think, first of all, I'm really impressed by India, and I'm very much impressed also by the women that I meet here, because I do realize also when we're looking up the numbers of women in the boardroom, but also percentages women going to university, everything, I feel that I'm a little bit privileged from my background. It was a bit easier for us. So I admire the women that I meet even more, that I meet here in this country. And yesterday I had a small interview by my Minister of Foreign Affairs together with the ambassador in Uganda, because today is actually the first day of the 16 days of activism. This is the UN campaign that's fighting violence against women. And for 16 days they will give extra attention to this huge problem around the world, everywhere. And so our minister was talking about the problems in Europe and in our own country. They were asking me about India, we were talking about Uganda, and he was also asking me the same question. What can we learn from India? What's happening in the country where your post is in? And I said, well, I saw many, I share the concern because I see it's a big problem, but I can also see that there are lots of very good and creative ideas. The one telephone number, 118, where women can call and they will be helped straight away. I see this pink booth. Yes. Of the police, where women can go, where they will meet female police officers, the pink buses in Tamil Nadu that are free for women to travel on, that you give them their own compartment in the metro, because that will help women to be safe in transport, but also as a government, I think, as a society, you send the signal that you don't accept this kind of violence against women, that it's actually against the law, like what you did also with your labor laws of equal pay. Even if it's not implemented everywhere yet, I think it's a signal of what society, what the rules are, and what you accept and what you don't accept. So I thought it was very creative, and I also spoke to so many people. Kiran Bedi, your first police officer, who was once invited to our residence, and she had this great story, and also her campaign on good boys, where she said we should invest in our boys, to teach our boys as well what's acceptable. Yeah, thank you. This is for her. I will tell her that her. So, and you see, so there's so much happening in this society that gives me a lot of hope and a lot of energy as well. So I could see that my minister was also energized, and he concluded this small video saying, well, I got some really good ideas here.
Well, that's good. That's good that the India experience energized your minister. But, I want to understand from your vantage point on the priorities that Netherlands is making. I know health is a big area of focus, and that is something where you've actually done much better than your peers as far as gender parity is concerned. But some of the other areas that the Netherlands is focusing on to bridge the gap, so to speak.
Yeah. Yes, I think in many of these different items where you rate how gender parity is coming along. I think health is one where we're really doing very well. But actually on economic participation, not so good. And which is kind of interesting. And the fact is that many women work in the Netherlands, but most of them work part-time, like 2 or 3 days. And it's partly because I think our childcare is not so well organized at this moment. It's very, very expensive. But also, I don't know, it's something very interesting. I saw that we even dropped quite some places. Because
15 places.
Yeah, how about that?
Yes.
I was also shocked by it, so thank you for making me Google a little bit and finding out. I was also shocked by it. And because I think if you want to be really at the table, you should work full-time. And of course, full-time doesn't mean 80 hours a week. I think sometimes we're too harsh on ourselves. You just mentioned it, that we're such perfectionists, that we always doubt ourselves, that, come on, go for it. Get your priorities right. Also spy a little bit on how women do or how men do it. I thought it was very interesting to be at meeting tables and very often realizing that I did read all the documents for the meeting, and I knew because they were saying things that didn't make sense. But
not in the document at all.
Not in the document at all. But instead of being totally upset with my male colleagues, I thought maybe I should copy a little bit of their strategy and sometimes just do it a bit more flimsy and be at the meeting table. But
have you done that?
I've done it. Now and again I've done it, because sometimes you have to balance things in your life, and instead of shying back and think I cannot do it because I want to do it always 100%, it's better to copy a little bit, but of course have your priorities right.
Yeah,
have your priorities right.
Yes, it does require some smart maneuvering and some smart juggling. But, if you were to look back at the time that you spent when you were in university trying to think about what career you would possibly want to take forward, and the concerns or the vulnerabilities that you dealt with then, as someone who's now spent the last 2 decades, 3 decades in public service, what would you tell your younger self? And what would you tell all young women who are looking at getting into the workforce today?
To be far more confident. To be far more confident. And also I tell all of us here in the room, please, your girls, that you're raising, give them that confidence from the start. And I had great parents, and they made me confident. But still, I could see in hindsight that me and my brother, that you get a different upbringing, that you get more rewarded as a girl for showing a lot of empathy, for example. And my brother was rewarded for being always out there and energetic and being wild and loud, and and I was being rewarded for being sweet and empathy, and so I think also we can fire up our girls a little bit at home already to reward them for loud behavior and energy and go out there, and so yeah, let's try to do that, and also raise our boys to
raise the men to have a little bit more empathy
as well. Raise the men to have a little bit more empathy, to also do some house chores. And
yes, shared responsibilities is a big one, and I think that all women will unite with you on that one. But is there a particular story? I want to end by asking you that, Ambassador, of you're used to walking into rooms with only men. Is there a particular story that you sort of have tucked away in your mind that exemplifies what so many women like you have to endure, have to go through, and how you dealt with that situation and held your own?
Yeah, well, what happens quite a lot of times when you're at a meeting table is or men stealing your point. That happened a lot to me. I don't know if others would say. It does happen, It does happen. And it also, and instead of being upset with the man who steal your point, I thought, let's see a little bit how they do it, and what's my mistake here? What's my mistake here as well? And I thought it was also a matter of timing, to let the man talk first a little bit more, and then time your proposal a little bit later so that they cannot steal it and that you are part of the discussion. I can see men smile and laugh here. They recognize it. Yeah. So I think we women, we should study them a little bit to see how it works. But this is one that I really remember. And you can do better if you practice a little bit.
So timing, get your timing right, and attack at the right moment. So that's part of the strategy as well. Finally, Ambassador, before I let you go, of course, India and Netherlands are working closely together on a whole host of issues. As Ambassador, you've been here since 2023 now. What's been the sort of biggest success story of the partnership so far?
Well, I think the biggest success story is that we're really strengthening the cooperation. We're waiting for your Prime Minister Modi to go to the Netherlands to actually announce this strengthened partnership so that we can do really more. And what's been a great success for me is to see all the people-to-people contact, and to see how much is happening. And, the longer I'm here, the more I see. And we live in a very dangerous world at this moment. And I think we need trusted friends. So I also feel that my experience in NATO is helpful to explain a little bit what it is and what's happening in Europe, and how upset and scared we are of the war in Ukraine, but also for me to explain to Europe that here, from an Indian perspective, the world looks different, and that you have other things to worry about, and what your reality is. And again, I think dialogue, debate, it's always the solution for everything. So knowing each other, seeing things from different perspectives, in the end, I think we are all looking for peace and stability. I truly believe that. And that's where we have to find each other. So being an ambassador in India is a great privilege.
Well, Ambassador Gerards, thank you so very much for joining us here at Future Female Forward. Appreciate your time and appreciate you being here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for the Ambassador of Netherlands, Marisa Gerards.
Thank you, Ambassador Gerards and Shireen, for that candid and very engaging conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, a huge round of applause for Ambassador Gerards.